Good afternoon, everyone. So, my topic for today is about hearing impairment. So, what is hearing impairment? Hearing impairment refers to a defect or damage to the hearing mechanism which may occur in any part of the ear. It leads to hearing disability or loss of hearing, which may range in severity from mild to moderate to profound. And also, it's not only the handicap of not being able to hear. It encompasses emotional problems, problems in socialization, and even in learning, and the difficulty to hear clearly as much as others normally do. So that is the definition of hearing impairment. So for the next slide, definition and concepts in the field of hearing impairment. The, a hearing impairment that is so severe that the child is impaired in processing linguistic information through hearing with or without implication that adversely affects in a child educational performances, and whether permanent or fluctuating that adversely affects a child educational performances, but that is not included under the definition of deafness. And in IDEA 04 recognize these two groups, but it considers them to belong to one special education category, which is called hearing impairment. So Helen Keller says the problem of deafness and deeper and more complex. It is much words misfortune, for it means the loss of true most vital stimulus, the sound of voice that brings language, send thought as tears, and keep us in the company of men. So we will be discussing about the history and proponents of hearing impairment. So the first one is attitudes towards the deaf have varied. And also Ponce de Leon, a Spanish monk from the 1500s, is credited as the first teacher of deaf students. William Holder and John Wallis in 1600s are credited with the first founding of a school for the deaf. It was in England. And Thomas Hopkins, Gallaudet, and Laurent Clerc founded the first school for deaf and in the US in 1817. Huge historical debate over the benefits of oral communication versus manual communication that called the Hundred Years' War. And debate was fueled primarily by Thomas Gallaudet, so Edward and Alexander Graham Bell both, both had deaf mothers. So there are three types of or classification of hearing impairments. So there are three. So the first one is conductive hearing loss. Second one, sensory neural hearing loss. And the last one is mixed hearing loss. So for conductive hearing loss refers to a decrease in sound caused by a problem in the outer or middle ear. Conductive hearing loss caused the impacted earwax and the infection in the ear canal and middle ear infection and exudation. So the sensory neural hearing loss refers to a problem located in the inner ear or along the nerve pathway between the inner ear and the brain. So if the sound waves will not process correctly, this is called sensory neural hearing loss. The cause of this is aging or noise exposure and heredity. And mixed hearing loss refers to a conductive and sensory neural loss occurring at the same time, sometimes called flat loss. So mixed hearing loss, basically, it is a combined types of hearing loss, conductive and sensory neural. And other classification, prelingually deaf. postlingually deaf, and congenitally deaf, and adventitiously deaf. So there are some classifications of hearing impairment that is according to language development and according to the age at the onset deafness. So for the prevalence of hearing impairment, hearing loss is associated with age. Over half of the people with hearing problems are over 65%, although only 25% of them use a hearing aid. Hearing loss is the number one birth defect in the US, but it is still low incidence, affecting only 0.13 of students in 1,000 babies is born profoundly deaf, and 2 to 3 have less severe hearing loss. The cause most often associated with hearing loss in children is unknown, but it is suspected that 50% of children born with deaf do so due to genetics. So there are some common cause of hearing loss in children in order of prevalence. So the cause is heredity and genetics, meningitis, and autism. In heredity and genetics can be congenital and sensorineural. Most children whose deafness is heredity are less likely to have multiple disability. And meningitis, a disease that affects the central nervous system, because hearing loss caused this way is due to bacterial meningitis. And the last one is autism, infection of the middle ear that result in an accumulation of fluid behind the eardrum that interrupt the process of hearing. So is uh, that that is the common cause of hearing loss in children in order of prevalence. So this is my part, and my partner will continue the next slide. Thank you.
Teaching strategies. First, encourage students with a hearing loss to sit themselves toward the front of the lecture theater where they will have an obstructed line of vision. Ensure that any background noise is minimized. Repeat clearly any question asked by student in the class before giving response. Teamwork for assignments. Assist the students. Transcripts of audio information and visual information. Educational program. Parent-infant program. The parent-infant program is designed to start the child's journey by educating the family regarding the needs that are unique to hearing impairment and coaching those family members in strategies designed to meet those needs. Parents play a crucial role in the development of their children. When a hearing loss is diagnosed and aids are fitted, the educational process begins for both the parent and the child. Transition program. The transition program is a crucial part of our school. As Magnolia Speech, school staff continues to serve students on an outpatient basis as the students integrate into general educational settings. Parents and teachers work closely together to provide workshops in services to schools, daycare centers, and other family members so everyone is prepared and comfortable. Research, study, and findings. Hearing impairment school programs teaching methods. The education of children who are deaf will be revolutionized by two dramatic changes. First, legally mandated neonatal hearing screening programs are changing the average age at identification from approximately 3 years to approximately 3 months. Research has shown that when appropriate hearing aids and early intervention are in place by 6 months of age, a child is likely to have age-normal language and learning milestones at kindergarten entry. In this light, the most important educational years are the child's very first years, when the family participates in parent-infant programming. Second, cochlear implants are being made available to increasingly younger children. These surgically implanted devices convert sound into electrical current which then bypasses much of the hearing mechanism to stimulate surviving nerve elements directly. The coded electrical current creates sensations, which the brain, with considerable listening training, can learn to interpret as sound. Research suggests that children who are cochlear implants surpass children with similar degrees of hearing loss who use hearing aids in the areas of speech recognition, speech production, language content, and form and reading. Children who benefit from early intervention and improved hearing technology, including cochlear implants, are likely to enter kindergarten ready for the educational mainstream. In the absence of additional disabilities and with appropriate support services, it is possible that these children may never require special education placements and will choose to use sign language only if it is their cultural preference. Bell believed residential schools and sign language caused segregation, feared it encouraged deaf people to marry other deaf people and would result in the loss of hearing for the entire human race. Gallaudet believed strongly opposed all of Bell's positions. He won support from Congress for the manual approach and separate center school. Ellen White says, "It is not earthly rank, nor birth, nor nationality, nor religious privilege which proves that we are members of the family of God. It is love, a love that embraces all humanity. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." Psalms 139 verse 14.